The sounds of gunfire and explosions have become a grim symphony in Sudan. A once hopeful nation is now locked in a brutal civil war. The conflict erupted on April 15, 2023, shattering a fragile peace and plunging Sudan into chaos. At the heart of this conflict are two powerful military figures: General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the head of the Sudanese armed forces, and General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, widely known as Hemeti, the leader of the Rapid Support Forces. The fighting, concentrated in the capital Khartoum and the Darfur region, has transformed densely populated areas into battlegrounds. Hospitals have been bombed, homes have been destroyed, and countless civilians have been caught in the crossfire. The conflict has spiraled into a humanitarian catastrophe, leaving millions in desperate need of aid. The international community, grappling with a multitude of crises, has responded with a mixture of condemnation, pledges of support, and frustrating inaction. The war in Sudan is not just a conflict between two generals vying for power. It is a struggle for the soul of a nation, a battle that will determine the fate of millions. The outcome will have profound implications, not only for Sudan, but for the stability of the entire region. The roots of Sudan's current crisis run deep, entangled in a complex web of political, economic, and ethnic tensions. To understand the present, one must look back to the nation's troubled past. Sudan, for decades, has been plagued by authoritarian rule, economic mismanagement, and intercommunal violence. The seeds of the current conflict were sown in 2021, when General al-Burhan and General Hemeti, former allies in a military coup that ousted the civilian government, turned on each other. The power struggle between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces stemmed from disagreements over the planned integration of the RSF into the national army. The RSF, a paramilitary group with a history of brutality, was seen by many as a threat to Sudan's fragile transition to democracy. The group's origins can be traced back to the notorious Janjaweed militias, responsible for widespread atrocities in the Darfur region in the early 2000s. Tensions between the two generals escalated in the months leading up to the outbreak of fighting. The RSF's redeployment of troops, perceived as a provocation by the SAF, proved to be the tipping point. On April 15, 2023, fighting erupted in Khartoum, quickly spreading to other parts of the country. The fragile peace that had held since the 2021 coup shattered, plunging Sudan into a new era of conflict. 2 years into the conflict, Sudan is a nation cleaved in two. The Sudanese armed forces under General al-Burhan control most of northern and eastern Sudan, including the strategic Port Sudan on the Red Sea. The military has managed to recapture key areas, including the presidential palace in Khartoum, the state broadcaster, and most of Gezira state. However, their grip on power remains tenuous. The Rapid Support Forces, led by General Hemeti, control vast swathes of territory in Darfur and parts of Kordofan state. They have laid siege to El Fasher, the last remaining major urban center in Darfur under the control of the Sudanese army. The RSF, drawing on its experience as a guerrilla force, has proven to be a formidable adversary, capable of carrying out swift and deadly attacks. The battle for Khartoum, Sudan's capital, has been particularly fierce. The city, once a bustling hub of commerce and culture, has been transformed into a ghost town. Hospitals have been bombed, homes have been looted, and basic services have collapsed. The fighting in Khartoum has claimed thousands of lives and displaced hundreds of thousands more. The city, once a symbol of Sudan's aspirations for a brighter future, now stands as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of conflict. The conflict in Sudan has unleashed a humanitarian catastrophe of immense proportions. The United Nations estimates that over 150,000 people have been killed in the fighting. The true death toll, however, is likely much higher, as access to conflict zones remains extremely limited. Behind these staggering numbers are countless stories of loss, grief, and displacement. The war has uprooted millions from their homes. According to the International Rescue Committee, an estimated 14.6 million people in Sudan are in need of humanitarian assistance. Of these, over 11.4 million have been internally displaced, forced to flee their homes and seek refuge in other parts of the country. Another 3 million have fled to neighboring countries, placing a strain on already stretched resources. The conflict has exacerbated an already dire humanitarian situation in Sudan. Even before the outbreak of fighting, an estimated 15.8 million people in Sudan were in need of humanitarian assistance. The war has pushed the country to the brink, with millions facing hunger, disease, and displacement. The international community has responded with pledges of aid, but the needs remain overwhelming. Section 5. Displacement and despair, millions uprooted. The ongoing conflict in Sudan has created one of the worst displacement crises in the world. The fighting has forced millions of Sudanese to flee their homes, seeking safety and refuge wherever they can find it. Those displaced within Sudan face perilous journeys, often on foot, to escape the fighting. They arrive in overcrowded camps or informal settlements, lacking access to basic necessities like food, water, and shelter. The situation is particularly dire for women and children, who make up the majority of those displaced. They are at increased risk of violence, exploitation, and abuse. Many children have been separated from their families, left to fend for themselves in a chaotic and dangerous environment. The influx of refugees into neighboring countries is also putting a strain on resources and raising concerns about regional stability. Chad, Ethiopia, and South Sudan, already grappling with their own challenges, are now hosting hundreds of thousands of Sudanese refugees. The international community must step up its support to these countries to help them cope with the growing humanitarian crisis. Section 6. A healthcare system in ruins. The Sudanese healthcare system, already fragile before the war, has been pushed to the brink of collapse. Hospitals and clinics have been damaged or destroyed in the fighting, depriving millions of access to essential medical care. Medical supplies are scarce, and many healthcare workers have been forced to flee their posts. The conflict has led to a surge in preventable diseases. Cholera, a waterborne illness, has spread rapidly in displacement camps and conflict-affected areas. The World Health Organization has reported that cholera death rates in Sudan are triple the global average. Malnutrition rates are also on the rise, particularly among children, as food insecurity worsens. The breakdown of the healthcare system is having a devastating impact on the most vulnerable, including children, pregnant women, and people with chronic illnesses. The lack of access to basic medical care is exacerbating the suffering caused by the conflict and contributing to preventable deaths. Section 7. The world's response, international involvement and inaction. The international community's response to the Sudan crisis has been marked by a mixture of pledges of support and frustrating inaction. While various countries and organizations have condemned the violence and called for a ceasefire, concrete action has been slow and often insufficient to address the scale of the crisis. The United Nations has launched appeals for humanitarian funding, but the response has fallen short of what is needed. The United States, while providing some aid, has been criticized for reducing its support for refugees fleeing the conflict. The European Union has pledged €2 billion in aid, but the delivery of this assistance has been hampered by the ongoing fighting. Several countries have been accused of fueling the conflict by supplying arms to the warring parties. The United Arab Emirates has been accused of providing weapons to the RSF, while Russia has been accused of initially supporting the RSF with mercenaries before shifting its support to the Sudanese military. This external support has only prolonged the fighting and deepened the suffering of the Sudanese people. Section 8. Echoes of Darfur atrocities and the spectre of genocide. As the conflict in Sudan rages on, there are growing concerns about the commission of atrocities and the potential for genocide. The Rapid Support Forces, with its roots in the Janjaweed militias, has been implicated in widespread human rights abuses, including extrajudicial killings, sexual violence, and the targeting of civilians based on their ethnicity. The situation in Darfur, a region that has already witnessed genocide in the early 2000s, is particularly alarming. The RSF has been accused of carrying out systematic attacks on non-Arab communities, echoing the horrors of the past. The International Criminal Court has opened an investigation into alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Darfur. The international community must act decisively to prevent further atrocities and hold those responsible accountable for their actions. This includes imposing targeted sanctions on individuals and entities involved in human rights abuses, supporting the ICC's investigation, and providing protection to vulnerable populations. Section 9. A glimmer of hope, the uncertain future of Sudan. As the conflict in Sudan enters its third year, the future remains uncertain. Multiple attempts at negotiating a ceasefire have failed, and the warring parties seem no closer to a political solution. The humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate, with millions facing hunger, displacement, and disease. Despite the bleak outlook, there are glimmers of hope. Civil society groups within Sudan and the diaspora are working tirelessly to promote peace and provide humanitarian assistance. International pressure, while often inadequate, has at times led to temporary pauses in the fighting. The path to peace in Sudan will be long and arduous. It will require a genuine commitment from the warring parties to end the violence, engage in dialogue, and address the root causes of the conflict. The international community must remain engaged, providing sustained humanitarian assistance, supporting peace efforts, and holding perpetrators of human rights abuses accountable. The future of Sudan and the well-being of its people hangs in the balance.